What is going on, everyone? What's up? It's been a minute. Welcome to not my weekly live Q&A, but soon to be weekly, so give me some time. My name is Danny Segura. As you guys know, I'm a mixed martial arts reporter for MMA Junkie, and I'm here with my pup, Hachiko. Figured it's been a while since I've done one of these live ones, and also it's been a while since you guys have seen Hachiko as well, so figured I'd have him here on camera, although he's like tripping out right now, and give you a little Hachiko update as we wait for people to join in on the live Q&A here. All right. So last time you guys saw him, I was still probably in New York. He's big as hell now. He went from 20 pounds to 36, and now he's going crazy. I guess he didn't want to be on camera, and I got Shiba hair all over me now. So off to a great start here. All right, so we're going to get started here with the questions in a few minutes. So again, if you're new to this or if it's been a while for you, then remember, you can throw questions on the YouTube live chat at any point during this program, and I will get to them as we go. This is kind of pretty much free-flowing. We'll talk about whatever you guys want. Mostly centered around combat sports, of course, but anything else is game as well. All right. Let me here open up the comment box. I believe we only had one Twitter question. I didn't expect many, given the fact that, again, we're a little rusty regarding the live Q&As here. But I've done a few other videos outside of live content on this channel. I feel like you guys have enjoyed it a lot from the comments and the like ratio and all that, so I'm gonna keep doing that. I got some things coming up as far as ideas for content, and then I'll keep doing these more often, not weekly as I said before, but certainly with more frequency. It's just, I have a lot on my plate right now, especially handling everything that my job entails over at Junkie. MMA is nonstop. MMA is busy. Doing a lot of event coverage ever since I moved back down to Florida. And then on top of that, handling all my Hablemos MMA YouTube channel and podcast as well. That's been a lot of work as well. So got my hands full, but give me some time while I get some of the production things sorted here on this channel. And then I think we'll get a nice rhythm going as far as live content, as well as just straight uploads of other type of content that I've been doing. Like I said, I feel like you guys have really enjoyed some of the things that I've done outside of live. So, stay tuned to that. More of that is coming, and it's just going to be done better. All right, so let's see here. We got one Twitter question. Then we got a bunch on the YouTube live chat. I already see they're piling up. So let's get that one out of the way. And it's by, you guys already know, the biggest hater on this program's history, really. A Pass of Wokeness, the one and only, the biggest Dustin Poirier hater in the entire world. And he wants to know, give me your thoughts on Nate Diaz being on his last fight of his contract. Will he be able to fight it out? Will the UFC strong arm him into an extension? So, interesting question, and one that it's hard to speculate. Obviously, most of this is speculation, right? But especially here, because I haven't seen anything. I mean, if anybody wants to chime in and throw something on the YouTube live chat regarding any information on that front, please do, because I personally haven't seen anything. I'm gonna do a quick Google search here, but I haven't seen anything regarding Nate Diaz being on the last fight of his contract. Now, it doesn't surprise me, though. Okay, I already see here something by the Daily Mail, the Independent, MMA Mania had something up, so let me pull that up real quick and give it a quick read. Okay, this is according to... let's see here. All right, so this is according to Ali Abdelaziz. Who told MMA Fighting that he believes that Nate Diaz has one fight left on his contract. And I'm sure he's obviously somewhat close to the situation. Obviously, he's not Nate Diaz's manager, but he is trying to get Vicente Luque a fight with Diaz. And I know, speaking with various people that fight is that obviously Luke is very interested in that fight. I think he's voiced that on Twitter as well publicly, and that Luke and his team, they're working towards that. Will it happen? I don't know, but that's what they want. So maybe they do have some insight on that. But again, here is the direct quote. Listen, I believe Nate Diaz has one fight left on his contract. I think Luka versus Diaz fight, I think it's a great fight. I think the UFC, it's a business. They want to make money, and I think Nate and Conor will make them so much money. I think the only way the UFC will agree to make this fight happen is if Nate re-signs with the UFC, he continued. But I don't know if this is good for Nate to re-sign with the UFC. So that's interesting. Back to the original question. Let's see here. Will he sign an extension, or again, will he fight it out and become a free agent? So that's very interesting. I mean, financially, he would have the incentive to fight out his contract. It's always a good idea to become a free agent. If you're a big name, of course. If you're not, you might be more dependent on the UFC, and then maybe if you go free agent, there's not huge pay out there. The UFC gets bashed a lot for fighters' pay, and I think, I'm a big proponent on fighters' pay, and I think fighters should be making much more money than they are in the UFC, at least. But that's not to say the UFC pays, for the most part, the most in the industry, I would say. Or you can make the most money in the UFC, right? I'm talking about the ceiling. I also think the UFC doesn't get credit for some of the things that they do. Boxing is obviously often the biggest comparison as far as the two sports. Like, oh, look how much they're making in boxing. Look at the percentage. But the boxing infrastructure for promoters is very, very, very slim considering the UFC's. In comparison, the UFC does put a lot of money into the sport. In boxing, name me a promotion, right? Top Rank. Name me any promotion that has a UFC PI. Non-existent. That has a robust PR team, right? That has a robust social media team, which in a way they promote the fighters and help them grow online, which obviously that has huge ties into how much they make and opportunities, financial opportunities in the future. And they do so many things that boxing doesn't. So anyways, going on a little rant here, but I still think that it's always best to be a free agent if you are the name of Nate Diaz, especially with the rise of the crossover boxing fights that we've seen with MMA fighters. I mean, look how much Tyron Woodley made against Jake Paul, right? Like he made, I think it was a base of $2 million, and you add on top of the pay-per-view buys and sponsors and all these other things. Sponsors something you cannot have in the UFC. He'll probably get closer to $5 million, maybe more. Tyron Woodley. I had spoken to his manager, Malky Kawa, before the fight. He said the way the deal was structured, he could make even up to 8 figures. I don't know. Not saying I don't believe Malky, but you do have to remain skeptical of everything and of anyone, right? But regardless, again, I think there's a lot of money to be made outside of the UFC with not only MMA promotions. I'm sure Bellator would love to have Nate Diaz, but boxing as well. Nate Diaz is a star, and he'll definitely have some big boxing fights out there if he decides to go a free agent. And look, that doesn't mean that, you become a free agent and all of a sudden the UFC's in your past. If you're still somewhat prime, if you're still somewhat game, if you're still attracting a big crowd, look, he can, fight out his contract, go take a boxing fight or two, and then re-sign with the UFC. Like, I'm sure if he leaves, the doors wouldn't be 100% closed, right? But with that being said, I also think there are some big money fights on the table for Nate Diaz within the UFC. The trilogy fight with Conor McGregor, I mean, that's probably the biggest one. And a rematch with Jorge Masvidal, I think that's doable as far as there being merit to make the fight. And also, I think a lot of people would be interested in it just given the nature of how the first one ended, even though maybe the hardcores might just, see that fight and be like, look, it was one-sided. The result's not going to change. But I think especially with the casuals, they want blood. They want a different type of ending, not a doctor stoppage. So there are money fights out there. So we'll see what happens. Again, it's hard to speculate because this is not like hardcore news. This hasn't been confirmed. This hasn't been reported. But it wouldn't surprise me if this is the case because we haven't heard of an extension for Nate Diaz's contract in a long time. We haven't heard any news about him re-signing a contract. And I feel like at some point, whether it's MMA Junkie, MMA Fighting, whatever MMA media outlet or even outside of the media space, the MMA media space, it would have been reported by now. So, yeah, definitely interesting. My hunch is if at this point he hasn't re-signed, either he's going to get a fat deal, the fattest deal from the UFC, and that'll be his last, or he's going to try out boxing. He's going to try out boxing. He's going to go fight Jake Paul, and he's one of the few MMA fighters that are top level that haven't talked shit about Jake Paul and sort of that type of boxing. He's kind of being like, yeah, whatever. Like, but he's not there trashing it. Like, yo, I'm too good for this. Like, I'm above this. I'm better than this. I really do think he would entertain the idea of a fight like that, or De La Hoya or something like that. I'm sure he'd be about it for sure. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Nate Diaz, but definitely an interesting question. All right, so that was the only question on Twitter. Again, I expected this. We're a little rusty. We haven't done this in a while, but we're getting a ton over in the YouTube live chat. So let's switch over now to the YouTube live chat. Again, if you're just tuning in and you want to ask something or just say hello, say what's up, throw that on the YouTube live chat, and I'll get to it as we go. Hope everyone's doing well on this Tuesday night. All right, this is a good one. I don't know how to feature more than one. Can I feature more than one? No. So I'll just read it as I go. So Eduardo Lopez here says, "Hi, Danny. Sorry for the long question. You are forgiven, my friend. I know it's not the media's responsibility to punish athletes like Jon Jones and Conor McGregor who can't seem to stay away from legal trouble, but if the UFC is unwilling to do anything about it and they're still getting the same amount of media coverage, it kind of seems like they know that they can get away with anything they do. I know it's not like media members can just ignore fighters. Ignore fighters of their stature, but seems unwilling to ask the tougher questions. I don't mean to sound negative, but this has been a tough few weeks for MMA media with so many different stories around domestic violence. Thanks. So good question, Eduardo. I don't share the sentiments that you're mentioning there, as the media hasn't been asking tough questions. I just feel like Jon Jones isn't doing any interviews right now. Neither is Conor McGregor. Personally, I've yet to see an interview from like a legit MMA media outlet or just news outlet have the chance to interview any of these fighters and then completely ignore the recent mishaps that they've had, legal issues and whatnot, and troubles they've had outside of the cage, and not ask about it, right? I haven't seen that. Maybe you have, but from the main sources that I tune into and that I'm constantly checking and just in the loop of, I haven't seen any media members ignore this issue and just completely go past it when interviewing any of those two fighters or anyone that's been involved in some recent like legal issues. Look, probably the closest thing we have to an answer on that would be to talk to the promotion. I know every time John Morgan on our end on MMA Junkie, whenever Dana White has been made available to the media, whether it's after the Contender Series or anything like that, those questions have been asked, about, Luis Peña, about Conor McGregor, about Jon Jones, about, what should be done by promotions if they're going to do anything. And that's all we can do. We don't have any power at all. All media is here to do is to reflect, is to be a mirror and to reflect what's going on and to be as accurate as possible and to let you know exactly what's going on. And then you decide, what opinions you want to derive from it. But that's about it. We're just here to tell the story, be as accurate as possible and tell the truth. That's our responsibility. And I think, we've done a good job at doing that. I don't think that the media has been suspect on that end or has been lacking, asking tougher questions to these fighters. Again, these fighters are just simply not doing interviews. But I'm sure whenever Jon Jones, whether it's for his next fight or he wants to do some sort of media, whenever somebody interviews Jon Jones, these questions are going to come up. These questions are going to come up. I mean, me personally, for example, the closest person I got to Jon Jones was interviewing Clarissa Shields over at PFL. You know, they're friends. Jon Jones has supported her a ton, you know, training partners. And when the Jon Jones news happened, I asked Clarissa Shields about that. Not to speak for Jon Jones, but kind of like, hey, look, this is happening. What are your thoughts on it? Because people are definitely concerned, and this situation seems to be escalating. And, you know, she issued her response, and that was that. You know, when Ariel Helwani interviewed Mike Winklejohn, we found out, you know, his thoughts on the matter, and also that Jon Jones was banned from Jackson Wink. So I think all in all, like, you know, MMA media has been doing a good job on that end. So to answer your question, I don't think that that we've been lacking on that. But I do agree that it's been a tough few weeks. Certainly these headlines are not good. They're very sad, especially because it seems that this kind of stuff plagues MMA more than any other sport. I don't know if maybe because I tune into MMA more than any other sport as well. But, you know, I keep a pretty close eye to soccer, to football, and I don't see these same headlines. Occasionally, you know, Arda Turan, you know, I think he like punched somebody in a club once and then shot a firearm or something. And, you know, there's been a few crazy guys here and there that have gotten in trouble and, you know, haven't abided by the law. But all in all, I feel like MMA, there's more headlines of this nature surrounding MMA than there is in any other sport, which is very sad. But, you know, we also have to keep in mind that, and this is not to talk bad about the fighters, but, you know, Kayla Harrison recently said it, you know, we're crazy for stepping in there. And I don't know if crazy is necessarily the right word, but certainly different. I don't think any regular person would have the capabilities to, you know, cause damage on someone the way, you know, these fighters do. And it's quite, you know, in many ways admirable, in many ways, you know, fascinating, right? I think that's what draws a lot of people to the sport, you know. It's literally legalized violence. That's what it is. And, you know, these people obviously training every day, fighting every day, they have no problem, or maybe no problem, but maybe they'll have an easier time leaning on violence and sort of recurring to that means in case of a situation where they feel like they need to use it, right? Not all fighters, obviously. I think there's some exemplary people out there like, you know, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I mean, that's a guy you would trust with your kids. Demetrius Johnson. I mean, the list goes on. There's so many great people that you meet through combat sports. But certainly, you know, I mean, just think about this. I mean, if you were at a club and some shit were to start, I think, you know, most likely a fighter would be more willing to throw a punch than, say, a soccer player or somebody that plays golf or somebody that plays, you know, football or whatever the case may be. You know, these people are trained fighters. I mean, that's their profession. You know what I'm saying? So there could definitely be a lot of factors that contribute to seeing more of these headlines in MMA than in any other sport. Which is, again, sad, upsetting. I hope this is the end of it, but frankly, it won't be. We're going to see, you know, more in the future. That's just the way it is. But certainly, you know, I think Matt Wells mentioned this quite well on Spinning Backlick on MMA Junkie. And certainly, I think we should see more from the promotions. As far as, again, it gets a blurry line because employees, independent contractors, but at least maybe not punishing them because maybe they legally can't, and legally and ethically would be wrong, giving the powers at play, but certainly take a stance of like, dude, we condone this. Like we don't condone this. You know, we're not cool with this. This is bad. You know, provide a number for anybody that's suffering from domestic violence and, you know, make it clear, like, you know, they're not about that. But staying silent and just letting the legal powers take care of it just doesn't seem the best way to go about it, in my opinion. But here we are. Hopefully that answered your question, Eduardo. Charry El Soga. Hello, Danny. How usual. I excited to see you in a stream. Thank you, Charry. I know you're over in Hablemos MMA. I've seen you in the comments, so I appreciate the support in both the English and the Spanish side of things. Thank you very much, Charlie. Nice dog, by the way. Thank you. Legend. You already know, baby. We out here. Yeah, I'm back. I back. Trust me, I back. Ooh, this is a good one. Joseph Belotti. Which November fight you looking forward to? So there's tons. I mean, I feel like we just went through a rough patch in MMA, especially in the UFC. I feel like Bellator has given us some good cards, but in the UFC, Jesus, these cards have been pretty shitty, to be quite honest. And I recently, a fighter, I don't even remember who, and I'm not trying to be dismissive, but they were verified and looked like a fighter account, told me to shut the fuck up after I criticized one of the cards. I didn't reply. I don't want to start beef or any shit, but I think it's kind of ridiculous. Again, before I move on to the question, I just want to say this. I think it's ridiculous that as media, people that are analyzing the sport, that is my job. We do not have the power, or we do have the power, but we get criticized for saying a card's not good. That's like going to like, someone that works in media, like culinary media, right? Would that be or foodie media, if you want to use a more simple word. That's like saying, you have to say that every restaurant is good. So they have to go to McDonald's and a food critique has to try, the $2 cheeseburger and be like, oh, this is amazing. This is the best meal I've ever had. Are you serious? And again, this doesn't mean I'm disrespecting the fighters. It doesn't mean I don't respect them. This doesn't mean I'm not going to cover them. I'm still going to watch the fights. It's my job. I'm going to cover it, but I'm going to cover it and tell you the truth, which is this card lacks name value. This card doesn't have that many stars. This card is not as exciting on paper as other cards. That's not to say I don't respect the fighters involved in the card. That's not to say that they don't deserve coverage, because I'm clearly covering it, but I got to call it how it is. And I feel like there's a portion of MMA fighters and fans that be like, no, you have to praise every single card. Every single card is UFC 100. Then you got, Dana out there saying, I told you every single card is good. You got to wait until it happens. You can't criticize a card before. Dude, that's totally not the case. It's like saying like Liverpool played Atletico Madrid. That's a fantastic game. But if next week we're in Copa del Rey and we're versing somebody in the third division, soccer players that are, part-time and they're plumbers during the day and they train at night and they're facing Atletico Madrid in a tiny neighborhood stadium, not even stadium, just field. Am I going to say that's the biggest, best game, in the season? No, I'm going to say that's, a shitty game. That's not an important game, so I don't know what it is, but people get really hurt about that. Like, you just cannot critique any card whatsoever, and I can't understand it, and quite frankly, I think it's ridiculous. But anyways, back to your question, which November fight am I looking forward to the most? Right off the bat, I mean, just that November 6th fight card at MSG is the one that pops out, but let me look at other cards here, because I don't want to be completely ignorant here and then just assume that's where all the action's happening. I'm sure there are some other cards in the month of November that might have something juicy here and there. So let me quickly take a look at the schedule, and I'll let you know. So the first card of November, it's a Contender Series card. Then we got Bellator 270. Let me pull that up in a separate tab. We got LFA. We got UFC 268. I'll pull that on a separate tab as well. We got One Championship. We got Bellator 271. I'll be covering that here in South Florida at the Hard Rock. Let's see here. We got a UFC Fight Night that actually has a pretty good main event. Yeah, you forget things, man. Got Ryzen. Another UFC Fight Night. November is looking stacked as far as events, as well as fights. One Championship again, Bellator. Now we're stepping in December. So I got the major November cards pull up here in front of me. So anyways, to finish the point that I was saying, we went through a rough patch, man. I feel like the last few cards have been tough to swallow, tough to sit there and watch. And some of the fights have been good. I feel like especially in the Latin American side of things, we've gotten a lot of business on that end. So, I have a lot of interest in some of these cards, but I understand maybe the casual or not so hardcore fan be like, oh, do I have to spend my Saturday night, watching these fights that might not have too much relevancy in their respective divisions, and they might not be that much high level. Like, I totally get it. But anyways, let's see the November fights. So from the Bellator card, believe it or not, I'm looking forward to Peter Queally versus Patricky Pitbull, just because, that'll define the next champion at 155 pounds in Bellator, and that's obviously a big deal. And from an action standpoint, I think it'll be a fun fight. Not the most high level. I don't think Patricky is the best 55er. I don't think Peter Queally is either, but they're certainly good. But from an action standpoint, I think it'll be a fun fight. And then, there's a few other fights here and there, but none that I would put as, I'm dying to see this fight. So really most of the action here relies on UFC 268, which would be the second event of the month of November, the second major event. That Kamaru Usman versus Colby Covington, I'm really excited for that. I think Colby is probably the fighter that is best situated to dethrone Kamaru Usman. I think it's still an uphill battle. I think it's still a very, very tough task. But I've said this before. If you look at welterweight, the best, or the fighter that has the best chance at beating Usman, that is Covington. I said that before they fought. And, I'm saying it again now here in the rematch. And clearly, the nature of the first fight proves that Colby is a worthy opponent, that Colby, can give a lot of trouble to Usman. In my opinion, I had that fight tied up going into the fifth round. I believe it was 2-2 each. I haven't seen any other fight that's put Kamaru Usman, since he's become champion, in that situation. Maybe you can make a slight argument for Durinho Burns because he rocked him in the first round and he lost that round. But then, after that, Usman just steamrolled him, right? Covington gave him actual trouble over the course of 20 minutes. So by the way, I've seen both fighters. Again, a little harder to tell because Covington has been less active than the champion, which is kind of crazy to think of, but it is true. Kamaru Usman just seems to be the guy that's evolved a lot more. So I do expect this fight to be less competitive than the first, because I just think they were like right here, Usman right here, and Kamaru and Covington right here. And then since probably Covington has gone a little better, switched to MMA Masters, which is a very underrated camp here in Miami. But then Usman has just done this since joining forces with Trevor Whitman. So I expect Usman to win, but again, super, super excited for the fight, plus the build-up. Covington can get kind of cringe, but certainly he keeps things interesting. So that's a fight that I'm dying to see. And then Rose Namajunas, Zhang Weili. Excited for that fight, but I'm not dying to see it. Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler. That's my number one for November. That's an amazing fight. I mean, someone's going to get stopped, and it's going to be violence from start to finish. I don't see anybody approaching this fight in a boring manner, trying to just win points. They're going to go out there to take each other's heads off. That's what's going to happen. And the beautiful thing about this fight is, like, yeah, both of them are savages from a spiritual sense. Like, they put on crazy fights. And, they're the just bleed kind of guys. They'll go out there and swing for the fences, live by the sword, die by the sword. But on top of that, they're probably the two most athletic and explosive guys at 155 pounds, and two of the most athletic and explosive guys in the sport, period. And that is just going to be, a beauty to watch from an athletic standpoint. Like, the crazy scrambles that these two are going to get into, the type of strikes, the pace, the speed in which they'll be fighting at. It'll be like watching something, fast forwarding. It's going to be insane. So, yes, there's going to be a lot of violence involved, but the way it's going to get dished out is going to be a lot of fun to watch. So that's my number one. I'm looking here at the rest of the card. There are some good fights, but yeah, man, just that Justin Gaethje Chandler fight, I think, is numero uno right there. Looking at another Bellator card. Nope. Next UFC one, Holloway Rodriguez comes close. I think I'll put that as second, in my opinion, or maybe Covington. Usman is second, and then Holloway Rodriguez is third. But they're certainly right there. They're pretty close. But that's a fun ass fight. I can't wait to see Jair Rodriguez back in action. That dude barely fights. So whenever you get to see him, live, just watch him, because you never know if he's not gonna fight for a year or two. Like, his inactivity level is pretty bizarre and quite puzzling. I don't get it, but yeah, here we are, finally, a Jair Rodriguez fight. But yeah, that number one fight has to be Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler. That's the fight I'm looking forward to the most. First time I can see you since the beginning. Welcome, Charlie. Great question by JS. How do you see Jorge versus Leon going? Does 3 rounds favor Jorge? I don't know. I think it doesn't. I think if the Nate Diaz fight taught us anything with Leon Edwards, is that, Leon, certainly a great fighter that can go 5 rounds. I'm not questioning his cardio. I'm not questioning his inability to fight longer fights. But I don't think he's necessarily built for 5 rounds. Can he go 5 rounds? Yes. But is he a 5-round fighter like Nate Diaz? Like, that's his world? No. I think Jorge Masvidal more aligns on the 5-round type fight, because his thing was, there's been a lot of fights where he's won rounds and he's won like dominant decisions, certainly. But most of his fights and most of his style doesn't surround that. Jorge Masvidal has never really been, especially this latest version, where he became a superstar. He's never really been the guy that is going to outpoint you. He's going to be the guy that's going to go in there and stop you with strikes or something along that manner, or at least be looking to like put you away throughout the fight. Not really somebody that's going to try to beat you with points. So the more time you give him, I think the more he has to work with, right? He's also been criticized, especially, earlier in his career, that, he was a slow starter. That's clearly not the case anymore. And he's obviously made some changes. But I do believe that 5 rounds will benefit him more than 3. I think Leon is probably better at strategizing and winning fights. I think Leon is more of that cloth. Like, hey, look, I might not necessarily stop you, but I'm going to win every single round, every single one of these 3 rounds. So I do think it hurts Jorge for this fight not to be 5 rounds. I think he would benefit of a 5-round fight here against Leon. And how do I see it playing out? That's a really good question, because I feel like, everyone is probably going to favor Leon, but if you really look at that fight with Diaz, I think Jorge's boxing is a little bit better than Nate Diaz, or at least he's a little busier and a little more dangerous. Maybe not better, but certainly Jorge Masvidal is way more dangerous with his boxing than Nate Diaz is. He's he hits a lot harder, he's a lot more explosive, and he's just, a bigger man than Diaz. So that comes a long way in the striking. And wrestling-wise, I think Jorge Masvidal can wrestle a lot better than Nate Diaz. If you put those two guys in a wrestling match, I think Jorge Masvidal comes out on top. Not only is he the bigger man and the stronger and more physical presence there, but he's also probably the most technical wrestler there. When it comes down to jiu-jitsu, I think it's pretty even, but I'd give the edge to Nate Diaz. So anyways, I'm just making that comparison because I do think that Leon would have a tougher time in pinning down Jorge Masvidal compared to Nate Diaz, and I do think that Jorge Masvidal has a better chance of putting Leon Edwards in trouble than Nate Diaz. And look, we saw that Nate Diaz clearly had him hurt in that fight. So I'm going to go with Leon Edwards should be the slight favorite, but I don't think that you can count out Jorge Masvidal. I don't think you can count out somebody with that experience, with that boxing skills, and with that power. I don't think you should. I think it'll be back and forth. I think striking-wise, both fighters will will have very good moments. I think Leon will have his moments. I think Masvidal will have his moments. But I think probably Leon will manage the fight a little better and win a little bit more in the wrestling and in the clinching. And I think over the course of 3 rounds, that should get him a decision win. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if Masvidal goes out there and beats his ass. So Interesting fight. Interesting fight. I'm going with Leon should be the slight favorite, but no more than that. I think Jorge is very much game in this fight. Your Spanish audience, bigger focus on that. Slightly, to be quite honest, and not to be a little, I guess, demeaning of my English channel or you guys. I love you guys and I love the support that you guys give me. And this is one of my favorite things that to do, just answer questions on the fly and talk to you guys and have a convo. Something that I don't do over in the Spanish channel. But I don't know, just speaking in my first language, and I feel like one that fulfills me a lot, being able to provide that type of coverage, and also I feel like I don't know if the word is needed, but I really do feel like I'm providing a service that nobody else is in the American media. Like, who else is talking and producing English content from the Latin American scene, from the Hispanic scene? No one really, at least in the way that I'm doing it. So I feel like, there's a lot of voices that don't know English and that still need to be heard. And I feel like, that is very important to me, telling these fighter stories. And there's a lot of stories that, if I don't tell, then who will? You know what I'm saying? Whereas in the English side of things, we got plenty of MMA media members, doing interviews, doing opinion content such as this one. So, again, I enjoy it, but I feel like I'm doing a much bigger service for the Hispanic audience than I am here. But that's not to say that this channel is not important, or to say that I don't have plans for this channel. In fact, there's a lot of things that I want to do here that, you guys will see. This channel will definitely hit another gear or two in the future. So just stay tuned. But certainly the Spanish side of things is something that I cannot just, leave. I cannot, take my foot off the pedal there. So, yeah. Christopher Flamini wants to know, how long do you think Cyril Gane, will hold on to the title once he inevitably beats Francis Ngannou? So that's a weird question, because right off the bat, I don't agree. I think Francis Ngannou today beats Cyril Gane. I can see a world where Gane beats him, certainly. I think Gane is probably more technical than Ngannou, to be quite honest, probably the more skillful fighter. But I haven't seen the power, even though Gane has certainly a good punching power and incredible physicality and just physique in general. But, that Francis Ngannou power is just very, very, very unique. And he's gotten better, man. He really has. Training with Extreme Couture and, Eric Nixick, he really has hit a much more technical aspect of his game, something that he didn't have before, and he maybe relied a little bit more on his physical and natural attributes. But he's going to be hard to beat, man. He really is. If Gane is able to pull it off, look, I'll come on this very show and this very program and say I'm wrong. But I really do think that Gane might be able to win, a round or two. But in a 5-round fight, in Ngannou's always game, eventually he'll catch him and keep the belt. So that's the way I see it. But look, I'll say this. If he beats Francis and Francis leaves the UFC because he doesn't seem to be happy, or for whatever reason retires, or just doesn't find his way back to the title, I don't see any of the current heavyweights beating Cyril Gane. I really do think you're getting the two best here. Stipe Miocic, maybe, but I feel like the best is probably just still right there, but is soon to be behind him. Remember, he's a little bit of a different era than these two guys, and he's got a lot of mileage on him. He might get back to the top, but I don't think he'll become champion again. So I really do think whoever wins here between Ngannou and Gane is the best heavyweight period in the world. So we'll see. Those two are certainly it's going to be a big fight. It's going to be a big fight. Let's see here. I don't know if I want to answer this question. I'll keep it in the back burner for now. Let's see. Recently, Ben Askren has been talking about a possible comeback, possible middleweight on his Twitter account. He's indicated that he wants to KO people now. How excited are you, and should he fight? This gotta be a troll job. This cannot be real. There's no way this is real, is it? Ben Askren, really? And if he is, if these tweets aren't did real, it's gotta be a troll job. I just see a bunch of Bitcoin here. I don't know if you guys are into crypto, but it seems crypto is doing quite well these days. I see a podcast, 59-minute podcast, which I'm not gonna listen to right now. Yeah, I don't see anything regarding that. So I would take your question as a troll job. You're trolling me here because there's no way he's going to return, especially at middleweight. And dude, he's done. Like physically wise, he's done. Unless he's had some miracle recovery. But just watching him fight against Damian Maia, he looked like he could barely move. And then watching him fight against watching Ben Askren fight Jake Paul was just ridiculous. Again, I think he was once a great fighter, but that Ben Askren that stepped in the ring that night, far from it. I mean, the guy couldn't even have a proper boxing stance. And I'm not here to say I'm a good boxer. By no means I'm like a super shitty boxing, but literally just 6 months of like training in like a decent gym, taught me how to really keep my shoulder back. And he wouldn't even do that. He was if anybody's a fan of the Twilight Zone, he literally stood like battling Maxo in one of those episodes where it was just square shoulders, completely off balance. Like he was just doing this, like just terrible. He has no business fighting at this point. But was he once a great fighter? Yes, one of the best in the world for sure. All right, Mystic Gem. Also, which fight are more looking forward to towards? What the hell? Great wording there, by the way, Mystic Gam. But which fight am I looking forward to the most between Dan Islam, Jam Block? What is this? Reword that, because Jesus, I don't understand any of that. Let's see here. Thoughts on the Eve Roberts decision? Stinky judges. I think it's fight fixing. The commission are in bed with the betting companies. No, I really don't think so. Believe me, there is shitty judging, but one, it's very different watching a fight live. Two, live in person as compared to the TV. It'll give you a different sense of who's winning, especially if it's close. And two, there really is a lot of judges that don't know what they're doing. They're just not good at judging fights. And that is a problem within the sport. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's fight fixing and that the commissions are in bed with betting companies. I don't think so. And what I think of the decision, it's hard for me to give you an opinion because I remember that night I was working, and during that fight I was just kind of tuning in and out and handling other things that I had to do for the site. So it's hard for me to weigh in on something that I didn't watch fully. But I'll get back to it and see it at some point. Certainly controversial. A lot of people were voicing that online for sure. What do you think? What do you think about a fight between Nate and Jake Paul? So this whole Jake Paul thing, at first I hated it, then I loved it. Not loved it, but I enjoyed it. And then I kind of hated it again. So with Nate, Tim is not that big of a deal for me because I feel like Nate Diaz is at a point where he's just doing fun fights and big fights. He's not a title contender. He's not disrupting any division if he were to leave and box Jake Paul. We're not missing from, hey, look, this guy should be fighting for a title. He shouldn't be doing this, wasting his prime against a non-boxer YouTuber. So that's clearly not the case. So look, I don't hate it if the fight were to happen. I would watch it because it's part of my job. Would I be entertained? Somewhat, but would I say, oh, I'm dying to see that fight and that fight needs to happen? Not really, but that's me with almost every single Jake Paul fight. Like, if it happens, I'll watch it. Will there be maybe some entertaining build-up? Sure. Will I enjoy some of it? Sure, but could I live without it? 100%. If Jake Paul were to retire today and never box again, I'm completely fine with it. Doesn't hurt me in any way whatsoever. So I'm kind of indifferent about it too, to answer your question. Oh, here we go. Real Madrid fan here. Sorry, Danny. You are forgiven. All good. Like to get your thoughts on some of the prospects that we've been seeing land in the UFC. Oliveira this weekend. Gonzalez last weekend. Halfway questionable. Is there a second part of this? There's certainly a lot of good prospects, and I think the Contender Series, there's so much of it. We're gonna see more of it for sure. I haven't seen a lot of their previous fights for me to give you an in-depth analysis on these guys as far as what they can bring to the table and what they've done, prior to making a splash in the UFC and whatnot. But certainly keeping a close eye on them, certainly for sure. Michael Terrell, long time no see, homie. Certainly, man. Hope all is well. Michael Terrell wants to know, is Jon Jones immune from being cut from the UFC? Close to it, yeah. I think he's such a big star. The same thing with Conor McGregor that, you really have to do some fucked up shit to you have to kill someone or it's got to be some really, really bad thing. And there's got to be a lot of evidence against you for the UFC to cut you at that point where you're at that stardom. Which is kind of sad to say, to be quite honest. But, knock on wood, hopefully it doesn't get to a point where we see something uglier than we've already seen. But yeah, this type of PR that both fighters have received, Conor McGregor and Jon Jones, and I'm not just talking about recent things, right? The Vegas incident with Jon Jones and the Conor McGregor incident with the Italian DJ, or alleged, right? Because it doesn't seem to be much evidence there as far as a police report or anything like that. But that type of stuff, if you were a regular guy working for a regular company, it would get you fired. In many other sports, it will get you fired as well from your team or suspended, lengthy suspension and fines and whatever. Here in the UFC, nothing happens. Literally nothing happens. They just go, they don't issue a statement, nothing, and they just let the law take care of it. And if the law doesn't, there's no repercussion from it. The train moves on, which is unfortunate to see. But again, I think that's the posture of the UFC, as well as they have that whole independent contractor versus employee dynamic in play, which, again, I'm no lawyer, but certainly I understand that puts certain barriers and hurdles as to what they can and cannot do. So yeah, Jon Jones is maybe not immune from being cut in the UFC. I do think if he were to do something really fucked up, he would get cut, no doubt. But he's got a lot of slack, tons of it. One, because again, he's a huge superstar and one of the best fighters in the world, if not the best. So yeah, it's unfortunate. But like Daniel Cormier said once, get your shit together, Jon Jones, because waste of a talent. Certainly he's achieved a lot with all these complications, but I'm sure it's kind of like Maradona. Like, Maradona became the best in the world, but he had so many troubles. Imagine if he didn't. He would have pushed that bar even further. So that's kind of how I feel about Jon Jones. And at this point, it's that was my argument for a lot of the early issues that he had. At this point, I'm just hoping he gets his shit straight. Just not even for the sake of seeing his potential. That's the least thing of my concerns, mostly for the people around him, right? His kids, his wife, himself, his family. Because it's not good. It's not good. It's not good, some of the details that came out from that latest police report. And from everything that he's posted on social media, it doesn't indicate that he feels bad or that he feels like he's done something wrong and there needs to be some sort of turning point and he needs to he needs to seek help or anything like that. All he said is, look, I shouldn't be drinking, and that's that. And not to keep bashing on John Jones, but it comes to mind every time because I have some friends that are alcoholics, and I know people that have struggled with alcohol, and you talk to them, and they go to AA meetings, and they're sober, thank God, and these people that I've talked to, like, in particular one friend, like, he's at a point right now that he could go to a bar, that he could go to a party and like see friends and socialize, and he doesn't drink at all, but he can do that. But there was a point early on when he was, being sober that he couldn't do that. It was just too much of a temptation. And it's like, it's been years since he's had a single drink. And it's like, when I've asked him, I'm like, yo, so you can't have like one drink? Not that I'm trying to like convince him or peer pressure him into drinking or anything like that. But he's like, no, like, not, that's it. I'm done. Like, I can't even do one drink. And I remember when he went to rehab for one day, John Jones. And then I think he did a Joe Rogan Experience podcast. And then he had already had a lot of troubles with alcohol. And, he had already had a lot of issues out there publicly. He had been in trouble. And Joe Rogan asked him, so like, how are you doing with like the drinking and stuff like that? And he's like, oh, no, I can drink. I just got to like moderate it and kind of handle it a little bit. But I can have a couple of drinks. I just can't go overboard. Like, anybody that has a substance abuse problem, anybody that has an alcohol problem doesn't say that. Or anybody that has sought help and is now a different person because of it and no longer has issues with alcohol, they can't say that. Look, people that are alcoholic and struggle with that, they go, that's it. It's cold turkey, nothing. So for me, it was weird for him to be like, oh yeah, I have an alcohol problem, but I can have a couple beers. Like, you never hear anybody say that that suffers from addiction. Never. And that was a long time ago. So I was like, And then since, obviously, there's been a lot more issues. So he says he's going to leave it 100% and that him and alcohol are no good. Hopefully that's the case, man. Hopefully that's the case because, certainly not good details that came out from that situation. All right. 3-2, haha, Simeone was running. Yeah, that was literally me after the game. I just took off and ran into the sunset. Atletico coming up short against Liverpool today. We almost had it, man. That first half started bad, the first like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. But then Atleti mounted an incredible comeback, which with some beautiful goals. And they were playing very well. Liverpool was just backed up against, their own half. And they really couldn't get anything going. And then it all went downhill when Griezmann got a red card, which shouldn't have been a red card, should have been a yellow. Zlatan Ibrahimovic did the same thing in another Champions League game today and got a yellow. And look, I'll take a kick from Griezmann any day than a kick over a kick from Zlatan. And he hadn't been playing dirty the entire game. It was like, just a high boot. Like, that happens from time to time. You try to catch the ball. You don't know if a player is there, and sadly there is, and you kick somebody in the face. But it wasn't that hard of a hit. I don't think he should have gotten a red. He should have gotten a yellow. But anyways, as soon as the red happened, we're playing with 10 men. Shit went downhill from that. And then Hermoso had a bad hip injury. It seems because, he had a little clash there. I forgot if it was against Fabinho or Van Dijk. I don't really remember. But after that, he just didn't seem 100%. And then he makes a silly mistake and causes a penalty. And that's how Liverpool get ahead. And that's how the game ended. So, pretty shitty, but we're still in this. This ain't the end of it. I'm not as frustrated because we did play really well. I just think it was unfortunate circumstances that kind of happened. JS here, fuck Liverpool. Yeah, that's what's up. Fuck Liverpool. Oh, he's a Fulham fan. A Fulham fan. I feel bad for you. How is what's his face? The Argentinian guy that Atleti gave to Fulham. What's his name? Argentinian guy. I think he's like 28. He had played for Valencia. God, I forget his name. He fell off hard though, but Atletico Madrid made 7-year-old me cry in 2010 European final. I like Atletico, but 3-2, LOL, and a red card. Yeah. I'll accept your trolling because it is fair. We did lose that game in stupid fashion. Michael Terrell. We're approaching the end of the year. Crazy, right? 2021 is pretty much over. This year flew by. Any fighter of the year contenders? Ooh. Maybe Rose Namajunas. Certainly on the female aspect. If we're going to separate the two, male and female. If she beats Zhang Weili and all of a sudden, she becomes champion, has one title defense. Did she beat Andrade as well, or was that in 2020? Let me double check that factor, because I think she might have beat her in 2021. Let's see here. No, that was July of 2020. Whoa, God, my timeline's off. But anyways, wins the title with a performance of the night, first round knockout, and if she's able to defend her title against Zhang Weili a second time, I think she'd be up there as well. So she's one that comes to mind on the female side. Kayla Harrison has been killing it. But I don't know if, the things that she's been doing at PFL, even though are impressive, they're still not the same level of competition. So maybe it doesn't merit, female fighter of the year. But as far as the male side, if Dustin Poirier becomes undisputed champion, that'd be 2 wins over McGregor and a win over Charles Oliveira. I think if Charles Oliveira wins, that'd be... Did he beat Tony Ferguson in 2021? Let me make sure. No, that was in December 2020, so right at the cutoff. But anyways, beats Michael Chandler via TKO. Incredible comeback. Broke the record for most finishes. I don't know if in UFC or UFC lightweight history, but anyway, 17, still impressive. Performance of the night, and then defends his belt against Dustin Poirier. He'd definitely be up there as well. I honestly, call me crazy, but I throw Anderson Silva in there. Just because I've covered his boxing fights. I've covered the Julio Cesar Chavez ones. I covered the Tito Ortiz one, and he's mounting a nice little comeback one that I feel like few expected. And I don't know. That's like one of the most feel-good stories of 2021. Watching Anderson Silva be Anderson Silva, be happy, and not watching him get murdered by, young guns in the UFC, fighting in front of, absolutely nobody and no crowds at the UFC Apex. Like, that's one of the most saddest things that I've ever seen in MMA. But anyways, he's finally getting a nice retirement tour. So maybe not fighter of the year, but best feel-good story of the year, I would say. Who else? Kamaru Usman as well, killing it. Cyril Gane would have a pretty nice year if he were... Oh, wait, no, he fights in Ngannou in 2022, so never mind. That's interesting. There's no clear contender, I would say, like the previous years where we had, Jorge Masvidal and like these other fighters that clearly stood out. But yeah, that's a great question. I would have to give it a little more thought. This is just off the top of my head, but if anybody has any suggestions, throw them on the YouTube live chat. Maybe I'm missing anyone. Yeah, Poirier, some anonymous dude 123 says certainly if he wins the title, Poirier is definitely up there. LOL. Yeah. Who else? I don't know, but I have to put more thought into that. Ask me the next time I do this. I'll put more thought into it, because that is a good question. Let's see here. Interesting. The UFC used to acquire so many fight organizations before. Why hasn't Dana picked up Scott Coker and his promotion yet? They would yet get access to big names like Corey, Fader, Dylan Dennis. LOL. Well, because that's the whole thing, and that's why they're getting sued, right? Because, they in the past, they have shown monopolistic, if that's even a word, or monopoly-like behavior in buying out WEC, in buying out Pride, in buying out Strikeforce, and sort of buying out the competition and creating a monopoly, which is obviously not legal here in the U.S. So I don't know if buying out Bellator would benefit them on that end. Also, they're doing fine without the Bellator roster. Like, really, like, name me one fighter from Bellator, and I'm not trying to be... I love Bellator, by the way, but most of the big name fighters that are there, they used to fight in the UFC and they let them go willingly, in the sense that they didn't really fight too hard to keep them. And there are some homegrown products that I'm sure they would enjoy. I mean, Michael Chandler was a guy they had in their sights, but obviously a Bellator product, and they eventually got him over. They're good at getting Bellator talent over to the UFC. I'm not saying all the time, but historically, if you think of like the really big names, right? Like Eddie Alvarez, that was such a Bellator product. They got him over eventually. Michael Chandler, they got him over eventually. Hector Lombard, when he was just absolutely running through competition in Bellator. He didn't pan out in the UFC, but they still got him over. Who else? And a few fighters here and there have come along to the UFC. So they don't really need to buy out Bellator. Maybe like Michael Page would be an interesting fighter for their welterweight division, but would it completely change how the company's doing? I don't think so. I think they're fine without those fighters. Really, like Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal, John Jones, Amanda Nunes, like the biggest stars, they're in the UFC. And Fedor, maybe that would have been a good argument a while back, but at this point, he's got 2 fights left in his career. I don't think the UFC would be interested in having him in the promotion. Anonymous Dude 123, you're back. Yes, sir. Missed your shows and insight, bro. Thank you, dude. I appreciate it. Miss you guys. Miss you guys' questions. Honestly, like, I don't know if you guys also participate in other shows as well. But the type of quality questions that I get here, like, it's just ridiculous. This wouldn't be possible with you guys. You guys always ask me really, really good stuff. So thank you to everyone that participates, on a constant basis, because really, you guys make this show what it is. Chariel Soga, all my faith in Dan against Makhachev, but do you really think Dan is unable to beat him? All right, so here's my short, lazy breakdown of that fight. I've said it before, but I'll say it again regarding Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker, for me, and I'm not trying to be an asshole, I'm not trying to be a dick, but for me, Dan Hooker is probably the best, and I could be wrong about this, and if I'm wrong, again, I'll come on this very program, and I'll admit it, and I'll say that I'm wrong. I have no problem doing that, but you want my opinion? I'll give you my opinion. In my opinion, Dan Hooker is the best gatekeeper to have ever existed. He really is the gatekeeper of the gatekeepers. He is the elite gatekeeper. And I mean that as a compliment. I know it can come off as being a diss, but it's really not. Like, he is the definition of, like, if you're not a top 5 fighter, top 5, you cannot get past them. You cannot get past them. If you're not elite means top 5. World class means top 5. If you're not at that level, if you're not at the highest level of mixed martial arts, you will not get past Dan Hooker. Get past Dan Hooker. Just look at who he loses to kind of back up that opinion. Michael Chandler, top 5. Dustin Poirier, top 5. Edson Barboza, 2018 Edson Barboza, top 5. And then there you get into Jason Knight, Maximo Blanco, a few other names. But again, that was like early version of like Dan Hooker, not the current version. But right now, if you're not a top 5 guy, you will lose to Dan Hooker. Examples, again, and we're taking recent examples. I don't want to go too far back because clearly 2 different fighters since. But let's start from 2019, right? James Vick, not a top 5. Ali Quinta, very good, but not a top 5. Paul Felder always lingered close to the top 5, but I don't think he even at his best, he probably came close to top 6 or 7, but was never like, the next guy in line to fight for the title. Nasrat on his last fight, again, he only comes up short against the very, 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 very best. So the question here is Islam Makhachev a top 5? That's what we're going to find out. That's why I'm so excited for this fight. Because if Islam Makhachev is able to run through Dan Hooker, at that point, it's not a matter of an opinion. It's not like, oh, he's just got Habib hype or whatever. At that point, if he beats Dan Hooker, Islam Makhachev is a top 5 fighter in the world, is an elite lightweight, period. I think he is. I think he's going to beat Dan Hooker. But is it crazy that Dan Hooker goes out there and knocks him out with a knee and puts him away and proves he's just maybe a top 10? Completely possible as well. But my hunch is that Islam Makhachev is among the elite today. Maybe not a few years ago, because a lot of people have been saying he's been so good for such a long time. I think he's turned some kind of corner, and his build has been kind of slow. But in hindsight, I think when he looks back in a few years, he'll be thankful he didn't get thrown to the Sharks right away. And I think he'll beat Dan Hooker, and I think we'll have a top 5 contender, and all of a sudden we're going to be talking about Islam Makhachev after that fight as somebody that should be fighting for the title soon. So we'll see. Booty 408. Don't get E. coli, boy. Damn, Danny. Long time no see. Welcome back. Thank you. I'm saying he eats booty, by the way, not me. Islam versus Dan, great fight, Cherry. Yeah, that's going to be a sick fight. I'm looking forward to it. If you could only watch one of these, Chandler versus Gaethje or Islam versus Hooker? Anonymous Dude 123 wants to know. Chandler versus Gaethje all day. I mean, I already went on a rant on that. That is by far the best fight for the rest of the year. Yeah, I think so, right? Like, is that the best fight remaining of 2021? I think the only one that I can put up there is Poirier versus Oliveira, and that's certainly a more important fight, no doubt. But like, from an entertainment value, let's say there was no title on the line. It's just like, hey, these pair are fighting. I think you'd most likely pick Gaethje and Chandler to watch. I mean, that fight is just a matchup made in heaven. That's just amazing. So, yes, best fight remaining in 2021 by far. Absolutely love it. Amazing. Dylan Dennis said he wants to fight Diego Sanchez. Is that fight possible? From what I understand, Diego Sanchez is a free agent. I don't think there was interest in BKFC, but I don't think they've signed him yet. I think he went as far as like maybe doing some medicals and stuff, but I don't think he signed with BKFC. I can inquire about that this week and double check. I don't think he's with BKFC. So technically, I think he's a free agent. I don't know if Bellator is interested in Diego Sanchez. I personally don't think he's as washed as other people think he is. I think Diego Sanchez with a good coach, not Joshua Fabia, who is no longer working with him, but if he's able to side with a good camp, dude, Diego Sanchez can still kick some ass. I mean, that guy's style, I mean, just watch some of the previous fights that he had, like not so long ago, like against like Craig White and Mickey Gall. Like those fights happened in 2019. Like he can still wrestle the shit out of people. That guy is especially at lightweight or at like 165. He is a force to be reckoned with. And if he were to fight Dylan Dennis, I'd actually pick Diego Sanchez. Diego Sanchez against any jiu-jitsu guy that doesn't have knockout power, Diego Sanchez 99% of the time is going to win. Against Michael Chiesa is like huge and very skilled. Okay, different story. But overall, if you're a grappler, like Diego Sanchez is going to get out of your submissions and is going to out grapple you. There's few people that can out grapple Diego Sanchez in MMA, even today with his diminished version. And again, he's always in shape. He always shows up. That's something you can't take away from the guy. There is something to be said about the amounts of damage that he's taken throughout his career and whether he should continue fighting or not. That's definitely an argument to be had and something that I can get behind with, because obviously the evidence is there. That guy has been through so many wars. But just talking from a technical standpoint, I think he could very well fight today. Again, not be a contender anywhere, but still notch some wins and kind of not be, be competitive. That's what I'm trying to say. So him versus Dennis could happen if Bellator were to sign him, but I don't think there's interest there. And I'd actually pick Diego Sanchez to win that one, believe it or not. Anonymous Dude 123. El español es un idioma hermoso. Yes, it is. By the way, if you guys are interested, a lot of people have reached out to me on Instagram, on YouTube, email, especially on Instagram. I've had a few people reach out to me saying that my work over at Hablemos MMA has helped them learn Spanish. They're like taking classes, trying to learn, and they're also huge MMA fans. So they're just consuming all the Spanish content, and it's helped them a lot pick up the Spanish language. So I'm not trying to become your Spanish teacher here, but if you are interested, I mean, check it out. Not only am I trying to sort of do a cheap plug here of my Spanish channel, but really, if you are interested in picking up a second language, what a better way than doing it through MMA content? You know, watching Vicente Luque talk to me in Spanish, watching, you know, Ilia Topuria, that's the latest interview that just dropped, talk in Spanish, Chito Vera, Brandon Moreno, UFC flyweight champion, you know, Irene Aldana, you name it. You name them. The top Hispanic fighters in the world, they're over at Hablemos MMA. So if you're interested in learning Spanish, not a bad way to start. Yes, great work, Danny. Thank you very much, sir. Let's see. Thoughts on the personality and IQ of one Tyson Fury. Ariel's interview with him made me shell out the $80 for the card. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Certainly one of the best fights I've ever seen. What do you think of the event Fury versus Wilder 3? So I didn't watch the Ariel interview with Tyson Fury, so I can't speak on that. But as far as his personality, I love it. I think Tyson Fury, he's been somewhat controversial in the past with some of the things that he said. Certainly don't get behind the stuff that kind of thing, you know, those kinds of things that he said before. But I do think he also is a very positive figure and has said a lot of good stuff, and especially surrounding mental health and awareness, and just kind of removing the stigma behind it. And beyond that, like, because I feel like, you know, there's been a lot of there's been a lot of progress made on that end, but also just inspiring others. Like, his story is crazy, going from like rock bottom to almost killing himself, and just those pictures where he's just, you know, extremely fat, if not obese, and then all of a sudden he's, you know, gets back into shape. Couldn't even run a mile, dude. Like, that's bad. Like, I'm out of shape, but I can run a 5K, like, you know, tonight if I have to. But yeah, and then, you know, going from that to becoming world champion, I think he's, you know, it speaks a lot on the power of the mind, and I think that's something that a lot of people, you know, dismiss. You know, especially these days, a lot of people blame things on circumstances, and there's certainly like outside factors that you know, determine people's lives and futures and whatnot, and certainly things should be made about that. You know, something should be made about those things as well. But there's also a sense of personal responsibility that I feel like sometimes gets a little bit overlooked. And someone like Tyson Fury is someone that was in a shitty situation and said, I don't want to be here. I want to change, and made the right, you know, decisions to get that done, and clearly a perfect example, world champion on top of the world. And what do I think about that? The trilogy, it was amazing, one of the best fights that I've ever seen. I also dished out the $80. Watched it with my dad. My dad, that's how you know the fight is big. My dad barely watches any fights, just the very big ones. So I watched it with him. We had a lot of fun. Yeah, one of the greatest fights I've ever seen. Certainly heavyweight. Yeah. And again, I'm no boxing expert, even though I've been diving into that world a little more in the last year or two. But I feel like Canelo's always talked about the pound for pound GOAT, and it's like a clear conversation. But obviously, he's competed in different weight classes and been extremely successful. So he's got that going for him for the pound for pound argument. But I mean, Tyson Fury's got to be up there as well, right? Like, I know he's never going to drop down to cruiserweight because it's just not possible. I mean, he's on the limits of heavyweight, but if you just look at skill, like, that guy's definitely one of the most skilled fighters today, boxers. I think probably the pound for pound GOAT is still Canelo, but with that performance, I don't think Tyson Fury is necessarily too far from him. So I don't know, just a random thought. Dun, dun, dun. I miss your weed eyes from NYC days. Yeah, yeah. I do suffer from red eye. Like not red eye as in I think that's a contagious thing, but like my eyes are often red. I don't know if they're dry or uh yeah, sometimes people think I'm high and I'm not. Yeah. But yeah, I miss those days too. Let's see. Don't do your chat during Contender Series. Tuesdays. I mean, literally, there's something going on every single week, right? Like, if I do them on Wednesdays, there's something going on. If I do them on, whatever, there's always something going on. And also, my schedule doesn't allow me. But yes, you're right. Contender Series is going on. What up, Danny? Do you think Stipe fights next? He isn't getting a title shot, so I'm thinking Curtis Blades. Yeah, Curtis Blades, it's a good option. Also, I think there's also a big heavyweight fight coming up between... who's coming up? Isn't Curtis Blades fighting Derek Lewis? No, sorry. He recently fought Jairzinho. Yeah, and he won. Yeah, Curtis Blades versus Stipe. Sure, that sounds fine to me. Yep, why not? All right, I'm going to answer a couple of these more and then dip out. Stipe should fight Derek Lewis. I'm also about that. Also about it. I love watching you and many of your former colleagues, Luke Thomas and Ariel, seem to have a new life on their platforms. You also have a great voice. Thank you very much. What can we expect from your channel? This is actually a great question to end this YouTube live chat. So, first of all, I'm glad that Luke and Ariel are cool. That was such a weird thing for me because obviously, like Luke Thomas is my boy. He's a friend, like a personal friend outside of the MMA media industry. I think I might actually see him at the end of the month because I'm going to DC and I texted him and I think we're gonna grab lunch. But yeah, that's my homie. I love Luke. He's a great dude. And he's helped me so much throughout my career. So I'm forever grateful for him and his friendship. But I'm also, I'm also good friends with Ariel. I might not be as close as I am with Luke, but when we worked together over at MMA Fighting, we were pretty tight because I'd be there to help him out on social for the MMA Hour, and obviously we worked together on the MMA Beat, and we often had conversations. Hell, like his barber became my barber when I lived in New York, and yeah, we had a pretty good relationship, and we would talk often. My dog is crying. Hachi, relax. So yeah, it was just weird having them kind of that whole rivalry, or not even rivalry, but whatever they had, it was kind of like a little awkward for me, especially when I worked on the MMA Hour. But yeah, I'm glad they're cool now because honestly, like I couldn't agree more with the things that both of them have said. Like it's not good to like beefing with anyone's not good. Like it's just such a waste of energy, a lot of energy. That energy is best channeled elsewhere. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad they're cool now. And yeah, I agree. They're both killing it in their own platforms. I think Ariel has always been, his role hasn't changed too much as far as like what he used to do prior to leaving MMA Fighting. I guess the first time because he's back with them for the MMA Hour, but certainly he's killing it, and I'm really happy for his continued success. But Luke, for me, was like someone that like I've been really happy and really proud of seeing him do what he's been able to do, because he should have been doing all this stuff a long time ago. I remember when he had the promotional malpractice live chat on Wednesdays, right? And I remember he was just doing it on his own, and like I would DM him. At the time, we didn't even have Slack. That's how long ago it was. And I would just constantly be DMing him on when we worked together on GChat, on Google Chat. And I'd help him like go live, as well as like cut some clips and put it out on social and whatnot. And I've always been a huge fan of his insight. And even then, I'm like, dude, this guy needs like something bigger. Not that MMA fighting wasn't bigger, but just like a bigger platform, a bigger show. And I feel like he's been positioned, and obviously he was doing the MMA beat as well. Not saying that he wasn't doing big things, but just he just seems to be having such a much bigger role at Morning Combat. And not only that, he seems to be having tons of fun. He is, from what I've talked to him. So I've been really happy to see him and his success. And this is just the beginning. Like, there's a lot more coming from him, I'm sure. As far as, more programming and different kinds of things. I feel like he now has sort of the backing that he's always wanted, as far as being able to chase his own projects and stuff like that, and things that he has in mind and he wants to do. So really happy for him. He's absolutely killing it. I'm sure all of you guys watch Morning Combat if you're watching this. Like, yeah, that's a dope show, and he's absolutely ripping it. So I'm really happy for him. But anyways, what can we expect from the channel was like the main question. So right off the bat, I want to change the look of it. That's something that is at the top of my priorities, but like, I want to do it right, and I also want to do it my way. So I don't want to rush into making a certain graphics package or a certain type of look just to have something, some type of branding. I definitely wanted to be me. I definitely wanted to be different. I definitely wanted to be cool. I definitely want to do my style. And that's going to take time for me to figure out. I already have some ideas, but I got to sit there and, put up an idea board and kind of fish and track down, what is it that I really, what kind of vibe I want to convey as far as like the branding and all that. And once I get that down, it's just a matter of getting in touch with someone to help me put that all together and making it a reality. If you look at the branding for Hablemos MMA, dude, that's been in my head for years. Like, I knew exactly what I wanted. I already had like the types of examples, just talking to somebody, put the ideas together, and all of a sudden we have if you look over at Hablemos MMA, we got a really good product, in my opinion, and I just love it. It looks cool. It's my style. It looks dope. And yeah, it just looks dope, and I love it. I love looking at the logo. I love the colors. I love everything. So that's something that I want to do here. But again, I got to put a lot more thought into it. So for one, what you can expect is just this experience being more high quality. From the branding, from the equipment that I use. I already use a pretty expensive mic anyway, so I think on that end we're covered. But all in all, just making this experience a little bit more polished. This is very raw. I literally just put live. I got my @ here that you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and that's about it. And then I just use whatever it is available for this software that allows me to use. But that's certainly one thing. And then the next thing is also sometimes of types of programming. Like, one, doing live programming such as this one, I want to get something settled as far as having a specific date and time, and something I do with frequency, not just randomly. But that'll come with time. And two, some of the stuff that I've already been doing, as you guys have checked out already, is I did some stuff on Volkanovski, Nate Diaz, Mackenzie Dern recently. Kind of just like quick videos, 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 15, analyzing a topic, and it's going to be more opinion oriented. Like, boom, this is what I think. This is my opinion. What's up? Let me know what you think, type of thing. And there'll be some other ideas here and there that I have in mind for the channel. But all in all, that's kind of what you can expect for this. And trust me, it'll be cool. It'll be different. I do feel, and I'm not trying to brag here, but I do feel like I bring different insight than others. Very unique. I have my own opinions. I have my own eye, my own way of looking at MMA, and just the storylines. And my own insight. I also have a strong connection with the Hispanic and Latin American scene, and I'm very aware of what's going on there, and have a strong connection with a lot of fighters there. And I can provide a lot of insight on that end as well. So anyways, I know I'm going kind of long here, but yeah, that's what you can expect, and basically just a much more improved experience than what you're getting now. So if you already like what I'm doing here, you're gonna love what's gonna come. But again, it'll take time, because I also have a bunch of shit to do outside of this, and I have a life to live, So yeah, just be patient. It'll come. And that's it. That's all I got. So I'm gonna end it here. Let's see here. We're the hardcores. Yeah, you guys are the hardcores. If you're literally watching me talk shit about, just talk MMA and stuff, you gotta be hardcores. So I appreciate that, because I'm a hardcore as well. You know what I'm saying? So I know where you guys come from. Before MMA media, before I worked for Fighting, before Junkie, I was watching every single card. I couldn't wait to get home and watch some fights. I couldn't. I love to, pop up the laptop and watch old fights and, look up interviews and whatnot. Like, I'm a hardcore as well at heart. So, I can be sometimes critical about the space and, cards and stuff, but that comes with the job. I feel like, I'm no longer, I revoked my fan card a little bit. But yeah, I'm hardcore as well. So love you guys. So anyways, I'm going to call it quits here. I think I've been going an hour and a half. I didn't expect to go this long, but here we are. Again, I'll be doing more of these live Q&As with more frequency. It won't be every week. It won't be necessarily every Tuesday at 7:30. I'll try to keep it around this day and this time, but that might switch around. So just follow me on Twitter at Danny Segura TV, so you know what's up about, whenever I'm going to go live. Turn on the notifications for this channel, hit the bell. And yeah, I'll be doing these a little bit more often here and there. And yeah, expect also more of the regular straight upload content. I got some ideas. I think the next video that's coming out is going to be about open scoring, because that's been a hot topic. So that'll probably drop maybe this week. So be on the lookout for that. So anyways, love you guys. Appreciate the support. Thank you for, staying patient. There will be a Danny Segura TV 2.0 channel coming out. Go to Hablemos AMA if you're trying to get your Spanish content on or you're trying to learn. And that's it. Love you guys. Peace.